The story of Prophet Ismail is not merely a historical account, it is a profound testament to absolute trust in God, patience, and the foundation of one of the most sacred sites on earth. This narrative begins with an aging father's prayer and leads to the miraculous emergence of life in a barren, silent desert. Prophet Ibrahim, known as the friend of God, spent the vast majority of his life dedicated to the message of monotheism. He faced trials by fire, stood against the tyrant Nimrod, and traveled across vast lands to spread the word of the Creator. Despite his high status and unwavering devotion, Ibrahim remained childless well into his old age. As the years passed and his hair turned white, the natural human desire for a successor grew within him. He did not want a child for worldly pride, but rather an heir who would carry on the prophetic mission and keep the light of truth burning. Deeply desiring a righteous son, he turned to the heavens with a sincere heart and prayed, "My Lord, grant me a child from among the righteous." God accepted his supplication and sent angels to give him glad tidings of a forbearing boy. This child, Ismail, was born to Ibrahim's wife, Hajra. His birth brought immense joy to the household, filling the silent tents with the laughter of a miracle. Yet, this joy was only the beginning of a series of trials that would test the very limits of human faith. When Ismail was still an infant, nursing at his mother's breast, Ibrahim received a divine command that defied human logic. He was instructed to take his wife, Hajra, and their tiny son to a desolate valley in the heart of Arabia place, where there was no water, no shade, no vegetation, and no human inhabitants. This location is what we know today as Makkah. Ibrahim led them across the scorching sands, through rugged mountains, until they reached the middle of the barren valley. He left a small bag of dates and a skin of water with them, then turned his back to walk away. Confused and trembling with fear in the silence of the desert, Hajra followed him, asking, "Oh, Ibrahim, where are you going, leaving us in this valley where there is no person to talk to, nor any food or water?" Ibrahim remained silent, his heart heavy with the pain of leaving his family, but his soul tethered to the command of his Lord. She repeated her question multiple times, but he did not look back. Finally, realizing the gravity of the situation, she asked, "Has God commanded you to do this?" Ibrahim replied with a single word, "Yes," with a remarkable display of faith that has echoed through the centuries. Hajra stood tall and said, "Then he will not neglect us." As Ibrahim disappeared from sight behind a mountain pass, he stopped and turned his face toward the site of the future house of God. He raised his hands and made a poignant prayer that is recorded for eternity. "Our Lord, I have settled some of my descendants in an uncultivated valley near your sacred house, so that they may establish prayer. So make hearts among the people inclined toward them and provide for them from the fruits that they might be grateful." Back in the valley, the sun rose high, turning the sand into a furnace. The water in the skins soon ran out, and the dates were finished. Hajra's milk dried up, and little Ismail began to cry. His cries grew louder as thirst took hold of his small body. He began to kick the ground in distress. Hajra, unable to bear the sight of her son's suffering, ran to the nearest hill. Safa, she climbed to the top, shielding her eyes from the sun, hoping to see a caravan or a shimmer of water. Seeing nothing, she ran down into the valley, her heart racing, and climbed the opposite hill. Marwa? She repeated this journey 7 times, running between the 2 hills in a desperate search for life. This act of devotion and maternal love was so beloved by the Creator that it was made a mandatory rite for every pilgrim to this day. As she stood exhausted on the hill of Marwa for the 7th time, a deep silence fell over the valley. She heard a mysterious voice. It was the angel Jibril. The angel struck the parched earth with his wing near the feet of the infants. Suddenly, a miracle occurred. From the dry, cracked ground, a spring of crystal clear water began to gush forth. Hajra rushed down, overwhelmed with joy and relief. Fearing the precious water would flow away into the sand, she began to build a small basin of earth around the spring, calling out Zamzam, which means "Stay, stay." This water was not ordinary. It was a gift from the heavens. It satisfied their thirst and provided nourishment like food. The miracle of Zamzam transformed the uncultivated valley into a place of hope. The presence of water in a desert is like a beacon. Not long after, a tribe known as the Banu Jahom was traveling through the region. They noticed birds circling a specific spot in the distance. Knowing that birds only circle where there is water, they sent scouts to investigate. The scouts returned with news of a woman and a child sitting by a miraculous spring. The tribe approached Hajra and asked for permission to settle near the water. Hajra agreed on the condition that the water would always belong to her and her son. The tribe settled there, and the lonely valley began to buzz with the sounds of human life. Ismail grew up among the Joram, learning their language and their ways. He grew into a young man of extraordinary character, strength, and wisdom, fulfilling the prophecy of being a forbearing boy. The foundation of the greatest city of faith had been laid, all starting with the unwavering trust of a mother and the cries of a thirsty child. As the sun rose over the valley of Makkah, the young Ismail grew into a man of noble character, strength, and deep wisdom. He was the pride of his father, Ibrahim, who would visit his family from time to time. However, the greatest trial of their lives was yet to come, a test that would define the meaning of submission to the divine for all of eternity. One night, while Ibrahim was resting, he saw a vision in a dream. In this dream, he saw himself sacrificing his beloved son, Is. For a prophet, the dreams are a form of divine revelation. To ensure it was not a mere thought, the dream repeated for 3 consecutive nights. Ibrahim realized that this was a command from his Lord. It was a test of the highest order. He had waited nearly a century for this child, and now he was being asked to give him back. But Ibrahim's heart was firm in his love for the Creator. He did not hesitate, yet he knew he had to share this with his son. Ibrahim traveled to Makkah and approached Ismail. He did not force the command upon him. Instead, he spoke to him with gentleness and respect. He said, "O my son, indeed I have seen in a dream that I must sacrifice you, so see what you think." The response of Ismail is one of the most beautiful moments in human history. There was no fear in his voice, no rebellion in his heart. He looked at his father with complete peace and replied, "O my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if God wills, among the steadfast." This exchange shows the incredible upbringing Ismail had received. At a young age, his faith was so mature that he was ready to lay down his life simply because it was the will of his Lord. Father and son set out toward the plains of Mina. As they walked, Satan appeared to Ibrahim in an attempt to sway him. Satan whispered, "How can a father kill his own son? This dream must be a trick." Ibrahim, recognizing the enemy, picked up pebbles and threw them at Satan, driving him away. Satan then went to Hajra, trying to stir a mother's grief. She replied, "If it is from God, then we are content." Finally, Satan turned to Ismail, trying to spark fear in the youth. Ismail also rejected him with stones. This act of pelting the devil is still performed today by millions of pilgrims during the Hajj. They reached a place in the mountains. Ismail asked his father to tie his hands and sharpen the knife so that the end would be swift. He also asked his father to turn his own face away so that the sight of his son's suffering would not cause his hand to tremble. Ibrahim laid his son down. The knife was ready, and the submission was complete. At that very heartbeat, when the blade was about to touch, a voice called out from the heavens, "O Ibrahim, you have fulfilled the vision." God had accepted their intention and their absolute devotion. In the place of Ismail, a large ram from paradise appeared. Ibrahim sacrificed the ram instead, and Ismail stood up unharmed. This miraculous event is why Muslims around the world celebrate Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice, every year. Years passed and Ismail became a pillar of the community in Makkah. One day, Ibrahim returned with another divine mission. He told his son, "God has commanded me to build a house for him here." Ismail immediately replied, "Then obey your Lord." Together, father and son began to gather stones. They labored under the hot sun, laying the foundations of the first house of worship dedicated to the one true God. As the walls grew higher, Ibrahim stood on a large stone now known as the Maqam Ibrahim to reach the top. As they worked, they moved around the building, repeating a humble prayer. Our Lord, accept this from us. Indeed, you are the hearing, the knowing. When the building was almost complete, there was a gap left for one final stone. The angel Jibril brought a special white stone from paradise, which later turned black due to the sins of humanity. Ibrahim and Ismail placed the black stone in the corner, completing the Kaaba. Once the structure was finished, God commanded Ibrahim to stand and call mankind to pilgrimage. Ibrahim asked, "O Lord, how will my voice reach all of humanity?" God replied, "You give the call, and I will make it reach." Ismail stood by his father as that call went out. From that day forward, the desolate valley of Makkah became the spiritual center of the world. Ismail remained in Makkah, serving the pilgrims and guarding the house of God, becoming the ancestor of the noble tribe of Quraysh and, eventually, the Prophet Muhammad. After the completion of the Kaaba, the valley of Makkah was no longer just a settlement. It had become the spiritual heart of the world. Ismail grew into a position of great leadership and responsibility. He was not only the son of a prophet, but a prophet himself, chosen by God to guide the tribes of Arabia toward the light of monotheism. Ismail was known for his exceptional patience and his honesty. The Quran describes him as Sadiq al-Wa'd, the true to his promise. It is said that once he made a promise to meet someone at a specific spot, and when the person forgot to show up, Ismail waited there for days until the person returned, simply because he had given his word. He was a man of the desert strong, skilled in archery, and an expert in taming wild horses. Yet, despite his physical strength, his heart was soft toward his people. He spent his days teaching the tribes the rites of pilgrimage and the importance of prayer and charity. As Ismail reached adulthood, he married a woman from the tribe of Hajra. His father, Ibrahim, who lived in Palestine, came to Makkah to visit his son. However, Ismail was away hunting. Ibrahim met Ismail's wife and asked her about their life. She complained bitterly about their poverty and hardships. Before leaving, Ibrahim gave her a cryptic message for his son. "Tell him to change the doorstep of his house." When Ismail returned and heard this, he understood his father's wisdom. The doorstep represented his wife, whose lack of gratitude made her unfit to be the partner of a prophet. He divorced her and later married another woman from the same tribe, named Rola. On Ibrahim's next visit, Ismail was again away. He met the new wife and asked the same questions. She praised God and spoke with great gratitude, even though they had little. Ibrahim left a message. Tell him to keep the doorstep of his house. This story serves as a timeless lesson on the power of gratitude and the importance of a supportive family in the path of faith. Ismail was officially commissioned by God to be a messenger to the people of the Arabian Peninsula. At that time, many tribes were beginning to drift toward ancient superstitions. Ismail stood firmly as the guardian of his father's legacy. He traveled among the nomadic tribes, inviting them to worship the one true God and to abandon the idols of their ancestors. He established the system of zakat charity and taught them the sanctity of the months of Hajj. Because of his efforts, the light of monotheism remained in the hearts of the Arabs for generations. Ismail had 12 sons, each of whom became a leader of a powerful tribe. These tribes spread across the Arabian Peninsula, carrying his teachings and his lineage. He is known as the father of the Arabs, and it is through his lineage that the most noble branch of the Quraysh tribe emerged. Centuries later, the greatest of all descendants would be born from this very Prophet Muhammad. Thus, the prayers of Ibrahim and the patience of Ismail culminated in the final revelation sent to all of mankind. Ismail lived a long and fruitful life, dedicated entirely to the service of God and the care of the Kaaba. When he felt his end was near, he called his eldest son and gave him the responsibility of looking after the holy house. Ismail passed away at a ripe old age and was buried in Makkah, according to many historical narrations. His resting place is located in the area known as the Hajra Ismail, the semicircular wall next to the Kaaba, close to the grave of his mother, Hajra. The story of Ismail is a story of transformation. A thirsty infant in a barren desert became the founder of a civilization. A son who was ready to be sacrificed became the father of a nation of believers. Every time a Muslim prays toward the Kaaba, every time a pilgrim runs between Safa and Marwa, and every time the meat of sacrifice is distributed to the poor on Eid, the legacy of Ismail is honored. He taught the world that when you leave everything in the hands of God, God turns the desert into an oasis and a moment of sacrifice into an eternal blessing. If you found this story inspiring, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories from Islamic history. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated.